Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and with me, I've got a full house. Welcome, Mac
What's good?
and Gio.
Good evening, everyone.
On today's podcast, we will be reviewing match week 10 of the Premier League. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social medias, both on X and Instagram. Our handle is at @houseup_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. And lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. Let's get straight into the first game. Gio, Manchester Derby took place this weekend, and you pretty much predicted it. It was going to always fall in the hands of Manchester City, and they eventually went out to win the game, but it was a little bit closer in the first half than most people would have expected, I think. What were your takes on the game overall?
In my honest opinion, from start to finish, I don't think United really had the chance to come out and win. It was a little sloppy, but I think even early on, the City could have, had a goal, like that chance where the ball came across the net and Holland just happened to miss it. They could have gone up way earlier. But yeah, no, I just think class-wise, skill-wise, I just think City were just on top of everything. Like I mentioned, I just felt like even when, Man United were kind of playing, their game and trying to do what they're known for or what they want to be known for. And that's sort of that transitional attack. When they did have their chances, I felt like City were still still quite comfortable defending and just kind of negating the attack. They were never really panicked or never really rushed. Everybody still understood the system, still looked very calm. So yeah, no, I think it was just City was never really worried about this game. They were very good, start to finish, and the difference in quality really shows.
Okay, well, Mac, you predicted, of course, the type of game plan Man U should play in this type of match. I think actually very early on, they definitely got a couple chances, could have gone on score sheet first, and I think it was a great platform for them, but of course it was undone by a penalty decision that we can talk about a little bit later. But what were your takes on how Man U set up, of course, that I think diamond midfield it looked like on once they actually started, compared to what we were sort of expecting them to play?
I didn't like the initial lineup because when you're playing the diamond like that, you have Fernandes on the right, McTominay kind of as an attacking mid, Eriksen as a lone DM, and Amrabat playing on the left-hand side. For me, it just seemed a little bit jumbled in terms of how you want to be able to cover individual positions. I understand McTominay's been a little bit more of a threat offensively, and you want to try to encourage that. And he had created a couple opportunities early on in the game and late into the first half where he could have easily have scored. But to me, I don't necessarily think I would have had him in that initial lineup. Maybe take a looking at different players to be able to come in to at least have a little bit of a solid, more of a defensive base and allow Fernandes that free role because I think that's what he would have excelled at. But I think that early on, you'd be on point where Manchester United looks like they were set on their game plan. If the penalty decision didn't kind of occur, you could see them going into the first half, City getting more stressed, feeling more pressure to be able to get out and get a goal. But just giving the timing of when and how Man City got their first two goals, one kind of a questionable penalty decision, and then of course Erling Haaland scoring very, very quickly again a second goal of the game into this early in the second half. Kind of felt like game was done and dusted by then because there was no situation Man U were going to come back and realistically score two goals after being down two against this City team playing like they were in that individual matchup. So not hugely disappointed with how they started up, but I feel like if we were to take a look at kind of the aftermath of the game, it feels like it's been a bad result, but everything has just been exasperated since, and it's been kind of it's like you're drowning versus they feel like they're putting some. It just does not look. I feel a good look afterwards right now, considering how things have been going. Because the feeling coming out after the game, how depressed it was. You had players like former players like Roy Keane talking about Bruno Fernandes should lose the captaincy over his reaction to this match. How Gary Neville again is talking about the Glazers. Player like legends like that just kind of being more depressed and getting more down in the club after a result like this, which I understand, but the result was bad, but the feeling afterwards has gone so much worse where the toxicity levels have gone past 100 in my opinion. And it's quite crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely not been a comfortable, I guess, 24 hours since the game as a Man U fan, Gio, if you've been, I guess, online. But let's go straight into that penalty decision. We can talk a little bit more about the aftermath a little bit later. But of course, penalty decision at the time I thought was quite harsh. It was given. I definitely agree it is a foul. Anywhere else on the pitch would be likely given. Just the timing of it, nothing really played out in my eyes in terms of that was a ball that Rodgington sincerely was going to get to. I guess that doesn't make a difference whether he's going to get to it or not. He's fouled. It should be called as a foul. It's just harsh, and of course, in a derby that was 0-0 at that point, for me personally, Joe, was a tough call. I wouldn't have called it as a referee, but also VAR having the referee come over and take a look at it in a slow motion frame by frame picture doesn't add on to it, making it a good, I guess, overall look for Man U fans. But Gio, what were your takes on that call at that time?
It's just it was harsh. Obviously, for the magnitude of the game, it being a derby match, it's very important that calls are made correctly and fairly, knowing like again understanding the magnitude. Do you really give that call that early in the game? Or that type of call to decide the game. It's usually games like this where refs actually kind of let the players play on a little more, knowing how aggressive it can get, knowing how chippy it can get. Obviously, to their discretion, not letting it get too out of hand. But it's a Manchester derby at the end of the day, or for any derby for that matter. Let them play it out. The arm wrapped around the body. It happens so often. It happens, more than we see. But that's like saying anytime that happens, VAR should say, okay, go have a look. Then there'll be 4 or 5 penalties like a match. So to give that, I thought it was quite harsh for an attacking, like an attacking player, yes, who isn't known for his defending, or not a lot of attacking players are. So for them to try to get an advantage, I get that. I don't really blame Arjun for that at all. I thought it was just quite the harsh call, and it was definitely a tough one to swallow.
Of course, Holland goes on to convert that penalty, Mac. I think if I heard correctly in the commentators, that was the first penalty awarded to a Manchester City team in the Premier League in the Manchester derby. So that's quite interesting to note. But I guess similar thoughts about the penalty given, Mac, on your end. What did you think?
I think my problem is not the call. I think if you look at that objectively, it should be a call. It is a foul, and if it occurs in the box, it should be a penalty. Straightforward and simple as that. So I have no problem with the individual call. My problem is more of the consistency of that call, as well as is that an arguably an egregious error by the main referee where VAR has to come in and to be able to step in and ask them to be able to review it. Those more so are my issues, because as an example, using the same referee going into the previous matchup for Man City against Arsenal, the Kovacic foul, same referee, different outcome. How come that wasn't reviewed, right? So it kind of leads, I understand the conspiracy of football, all the people thinking like that, always fun to talk about, but it's more so I think the consistency is the issue, because if you're always calling that, later on in the game, Harry Maguire did the exact same thing to Erling Haaland, and that wasn't called. So what is the bar? Why? And that's more the question where I have. If that's always going to be called, and I personally think it should be, because that is, even though it happens in every game for every Premier League match that we'll mostly watch, the arms around it, again, is something that in the rule book is not allowed. It's not supposed to be done, but it's just kind of accepted by general practice that it's okay, which I don't agree with. If that's okay, we should be like, yeah, you're able to wrap your arms around players in corner kicks or free kicks, and that's fine. So if that's the rule, we should make it as this. If it's not, those calls should be called, but they should be called consistently. That's more so my issue with that individual situation.
Yeah, okay, and so you said a lot of things. A lot that we see are those plays where defenders have their arms wrapped around their opposing attackers. One of the plays that we saw a lot in this game, I like to think, is the Bernardo Silva overlap for over Jack Grealish to put that cross in for Erling Haaland. He had one saved, I believe, in the first half, but of course went on to score in the second half, very early into the second half, which basically put the game away, I would say, in terms of Man City's favor. Not often we see a team that has a set play, but I feel like Man City, the way they have their wingers, create space by staying out wide, and then their midfielders underlapping or overlapping to create those overloads. It's quite fascinating to see. Haaland, of course, gets 2, Foden gets 1, and for Man City, Gio, this is I guess, definitely a needed win to continue their chase for the title. But I guess with regards to Phil Foden, Julian Alvarez, Jack Grealish, they looked all quite impressive. Even Doku came on and was creating problems there. Haaland now on the score sheet. Is this a platform for them to then continue and make that push that they always do in the Premier League to sort of reclaim that first place spot in the Premier League?
Yes and no. Yes, because it is a Manchester derby. It does mean a lot to the fandom of it all. But how impressive is it to beat this underwhelming Man United side at this point? You are levels above them. Let's be quite honest here. So the fact that they took care of business is what it is, and they should be happy with the result because it's a Manchester derby, but not be too high on it because of the quality that Man U is providing, week in and week out these days in the Prem. So with that being said, it's the bigger games that they need to focus on, and like it's the Arsenals and those games and the Liverpools that they really have to hone in and scrape out the points and the consistency in their games against the lower table sides. I think last season that's where we saw them drop points against the lower table sides late into the matches. But it's good to get your players going. It's good to get Erling Haaland going. Obviously with a brace, it's good to see. And with Jack Grealish, obviously coming in and being more of a rotational player with Doku, depending on the matchups. For him to stay consistent and to put out a performance like this is definitely very positive for Pep.
Yeah, and so on that note, Mac, I know that we're going to cover now. Not a great look. Doku did come on and got assaulted by Anthony on number of occasions. I think Bruno Fernandes tried his part as well. Not a great look overall for Man U fans. I'm sure you guys have come across the visual that I think Doku put out on social media afterwards. I think he said something like "calm down, Manchester is blue" or something along the lines of that. Not a great performance in terms of result for Man U, but one thing that you highlighted last year, Mac, and I think I do agree very much on that with you, is last year what is different from this Man U side is Marcus Rashford was on a purple patch and was scoring goals, taking Man U, basically putting them on his shoulders and driving them through to that top 4 finish. This year, of course, goals have dried up. Rashford, Højlund, Bruno Fernandes haven't had their output in terms of goals and assists so far in the Premier League, and that's of course going to be a problem for them. How do you see this being affecting them moving forward in the Premier League and also in other competitions?
I think this is, in terms of this is probably as down as you can be in terms of Manchester United or fan and or player, because a lot of the comments coming out, especially from Ten Hag, I don't know if you heard his quote in terms of, so my issue, I guess, where Manchester United is right now is kind of how they're playing and how they're approaching games to how we thought they would try to evolve as a football club. There is no major football club or one of the team's best football clubs in the world right now trying to play the style of play that they're playing right now. So they're being very unique in how they're playing, and they're playing very much like a mid-table Premier League team. Transition, counterattack, trying to play, see if we can be defensive and get our goals on the break. That's kind of their game plan, which has been the same thing as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the same thing as Ralf Rangnick. So there's been no evolution to the club. We had assumed with Ten Hag coming in that there would be a change. And he had quoted saying that I will never be able to play that way as terms of what I did in Ajax, in terms of Manchester United. I'm a different player now, and it's another reason that and the reason I came here in terms of what he wants to be able to do was to play this type of style. And for me, I feel like that's a regression from the club, where all the other best teams, I know it's a lot of people like to joke about Arsenal copying what Manchester City do, but you could play like Newcastle. Eddie Howe came in, implement the style, brought in players to be able to fit that style. In terms of what Jurgen Klopp did with Liverpool, same thing. There was a manager that brought in how a club wants them to be able to have this type of style of how they want to be able to play. It seems like he's just copying and pasting it's very similar, maybe a marginally better, but very similar play styles of what we've seen from previous managers from this club. So there's been no evolution there. So that for me is very disparaging. And to come out and now to say, yes, that is the game plan. That is what we want to do. Long term, that's what I view as success. I don't feel as if, and if it was more, he might be a genius that we don't know about, that he's seeing 4 to 5 future years in ahead, where that's what everyone's going to be doing to be successful. But no one else is doing it right now. So the fact that he is raises a lot of eyebrows and he's not getting the results to back it up. And offensively, as you talked about with Rashford, yeah, he's been kind of was the Band-Aid last year, but now you're spending so much money to replace players that they've bought over previous years. Like you bought Amrabat because you made a mistake buying Casemiro. Why do that? Mount's coming in, and I think that Ten Hag again got this wrong in terms of substitution, where we're getting attacked down our left-hand side, so let's bring a more attacking option to be able to help on the other side of the pitch at a halftime substitution, instead of kind of we're getting Bruno Fernandes is getting kind of laid over on that side. Let's see if we can kind of take him out of the equation. So I feel like Ten Hag again and again has made mistakes. And now to come out in interviews afterwards and say the things that he's saying to make it look even worse, I feel like it's very difficult now to see what the path is moving forward. They'll probably have easier fixtures. They could end up getting better results going forward, but it's just a rough look. And now what the hope you would have of what he could potentially bring, for me, has been watered down by not just this result, by everything else going around it as well.
Okay, well, lastly, I know we're on this topic for a long time. I just want to get Gio's thoughts. Let's pretend this is Man U TV, much like Arsenal TV. Gio, as a Man U fan, not a great look having Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans start as a center back pairing against a Manchester City team in 2023. Varane, of course, on the bench. Team selection, of course, a lot of injuries, a lot going on there with, of course, Sancho and other things going on there, injuries and whatnot. The club is in disarray with ownership and all that. What do you hope is moving forward the target for Man U for this season?
This season, obviously, no matter what is going on, I think keeping aspirations high is important because it still creates hunger in the team, within the players. So that's always important, and they should continue to reiterate that. But I think, they'd be very happy with a top 4 finish and only a top 4 finish. And this is just me being a very optimistic fan, a very, a non-delusional type fan. A top 4 finish right now would be fantastic. I know early on the season, we talked about what I, definitely overshot. But the fact of the matter is, they don't have the depth and they don't have the quality in terms of whatever, like Max said, whatever Ten Hag's, 3 to 4 year plan is with this club, if he has that amount of time, to create that winning mentality, or that type of style that he wants and to execute his vision. So yeah, I don't think they'll go deep in those types of competitions like the Champions League, like Europa League, even if they make it through, to really make a push and try to get titles under your belt. But I think they really just need to hone in on the league, and that's what's important, and that's what's gonna get them back into those competitions. So, it's gonna take a couple of summers, maybe a few summers, for things to start getting back on track. Obviously what fans are used to in terms of success, or quote unquote what they see as success. So fans, be patient. It is what it is. It's a rebuild. You might not think of it as a rebuild. We could see some faces go, and some faces come in, but there's going to be a lot of change. So just keep expectations, at bay.
Of course, Man U are not in great shape right now, but of course we're going to move on now to another team who looked like they might have been on the up, but Mac not in great shape either, and that's of course Chelsea, who lost at home 2-0 to Brentford this past weekend. Yeah, what were your thoughts on this performance, Mac?
The only bright side... thoughts on this match. In terms of I know that's not individually about this Nas, but Mohamed El Neni for Arsenal has now more assists than Enzo Fernandez in the Premier League this season. Just want to point that out. Lovely facts there. I think we all should know that and just kind of keep it around and share it with each other. But for this result, again, Chelsea, I feel like, again, their issues are tried and tested. I think from a midfield defensive structure, they have the foundation of a very solid team. They're just so porous in front of goal. It's horrendous. It's like when you're playing FIFA and someone that's just playing FIFA the first time and they just figured out that time finishing was on their controller, and then realize, yeah, that's why nothing's in the target at any time whatsoever. Or that's why it's kind of dribbling right towards the goalkeeper's hands. It's just, it's just a mistake that they're making. They need to turn that setting off and kind of reset and kind of move forward from there. I think, though, if I want to be a bright side, Cole Palmer, he looked very good. He was creating a lot of chances for this Chelsea team. But the problem is if you have Sterling, who's very well known to miss quite a few chances and he needs an abundance to be able to get a couple, or Cucurella coming in to be able to finish them, you're going to have trouble. So their quality needs to be fixed in the final third. Will that change when Cucu comes back? I don't know. Jackson, a lot of Chelsea fans were telling me, hey, he looks very promising. Things could look great, but I guess not. It's not looking great for him right now. So I think overall, it's disappointing. A lot of teams do get done in by this Brentford team. They're very sound, structurally defensive, and have a good way about them. Chelsea still managed to be able to get 17 shots, but again, their issue is just in the final third, finishing off those opportunities. So I don't want to throw blame on Pochettino. And I feel like that's the difference between kind of the Ten Hag, if we're to compare and contrast to Pochettino's, where I do see a system foundation. There is something to be built. We do see kind of seeds growing, and it's just kind of weeding out maybe a couple of bad areas and finding a couple final pieces to be able to complete the puzzle. But I like what they're going with right now. It's just that they need to figure out a couple of key positions, and could very well be more of a challenge to a lot of these other teams going forward. However, quick shout out, Neil Maupay. Again, you still can't score, even though once it's a 2-0 break, you're still trash. But I love the fact that he's wearing Sanchez's jersey after the game. I don't know if you guys saw that on Twitter, him just posing in the bus, with like a beer or something, and he's wearing the Chelsea goalkeeper's jersey. Pure class, pure troll. And the fact that he got the yellow card before even coming on, I hate him, but well done.
Yeah, that's definitely not a player that you want to be coming up against. You love him if he's on your team, but not a player that you want to be facing any time in the Premier League. But I think Mac covered it all there, Gio, in terms of if Cole Palmer is your best player on the day, is not going to look great, considering the fact that he was sold from Manchester City for not cutting it there. I would think, and so. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Chelsea? This performance, of course, conceding against the run of play, and then at the very end, the way that they essentially just fell down, and it just went horribly wrong for them. What are your thoughts on them, Gio?
Absolute shambles. If there's a club worse than Man U right now, it is Chelsea. So there's always there's always a bright side. It just depends on your perspective. So yeah, there's always something to be happy about. But I just thought Chelsea's defending was poor. Brentford had one. They had one play where they were running, where obviously get it on the wing and let the runner overlap. Well, no, overlap. Run through the seams and they kind of play a through ball forward. They ran that, almost got a goal, but was shot right at Sanchez. Sanchez made a great save off the arm. Shot back up to the middle. Couple of minutes after. Runs the same play, same side, cannot track the run again, continues, same play, and Bomo, to Pinnock, goal. It was identical. They almost scored the first play, and you refuse to defend it right the second play, and that's what happens. I just don't understand the defensive scheme there, the lack of communication. It was just all over the place. Which obviously sucks to see because, that's just, at a professional level, it's like you kind of adjust. If one thing's working for a team, you kind of adjust. Obviously, something was working on that side for Brentford, and that's why they kept going back to it. So yeah, very unfortunate to see. And then obviously, they had to put all their cards on the table to try to salvage a point. Couldn't do so. Sanchez was obviously watching some Allison tapes prior to the game. That obviously didn't work, and I don't know if Maupay wanted to score, didn't want to score, wanted to assist. I don't know who wants to assist over the goal, but he decided that he needed to let the ball go. Obviously, he was getting chased down by Sanchez, but Mbomo, very deserving of a goal. Yeah, no, he's having a string of great weeks. So yeah, it's nice to see it. Keep it up.
I want to be able to jump in there, Gio. So actually, Neil Maupay didn't pass the ball. He didn't even, because he's not credited for assists. Sanchez actually kicked it, and then it went to Mbomo. So again, Neil Maupay takes another L in that situation, but still, it's hilarious.
Or would it be that he purposely didn't try to kick it, or gave Sanchez a chance to try to get something on it? It went on to Mbomo's path, and he put it away. Of course, I'm trolling, but honestly, like you said, Gio, it's very, very naive from Pochettino and that Chelsea team. If you know Brentford, who have been in the Premier League for a number of years now, you know how they're going to play. Mac, you said they're great defensively, and they're going to try to get their chances through set pieces or through great balls played from the wingers. That's something you got to defend. And if you don't score, you're going to get punished. Sucks to be them in this time the season, of course, with their trajectory looking up, like they were going to be coming up. But yeah, Poch has, of course, a lot of work to do, and I think he's something that is not getting looked at too much is, of course, the inconsistency in terms of the result. It is a new Chelsea team. A lot of changes are taking place, but he has to take some of that blame, I feel like. Of course, some of the players do as well, but if you are a Premier League manager that has done quite well with Spurs before, this is not something new, and I feel like that is something that has been overlooked at this point. Could he be another manager that's on the hot seat? I personally don't think so, but questions should be asked there, I think, overall. But anyways, let's take a quick break here, boys, and we'll be back covering some more Premier League games from this weekend. So stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are going to continue our podcast now discussing Liverpool versus Nottingham Forest. Liverpool, of course, coming away with the win 3-0 at home. Pretty good performance at home. Off sort of a couple of questionable results in the league in the last couple of weeks, but this looks like a lot more. Klopp's system is starting to come through. Definitely the midfield starting to look more settled with the addition of that new style of play where Trent Alexander-Arnold is joining in the midfield. And then, of course, you have Szoboszlai and Gravenberch sort of helping out on each wing, with McAllister being sort of that second pivot. So I think in terms of the Liverpool to get down that style of play, this was a great game. Nottingham Forest, of course, not one of the strongest teams in the Premier League. They, of course, had chances, and I think were set up in a great way to hit Liverpool on the break. But I think on the day, Liverpool had enough, and of course put their chances away in the end to make it a comfortable 3-0 win at home. Goals from goals from Jota, Nunez, and Salah as well. Of course, it's going to be a great return for Liverpool fans, seeing more goals from the front three. And yeah, just overall, I think a good team performance. Just lastly, before I toss to Gio's thoughts, of course, when Jota scored his goal, raised the Luis Diaz jersey, signifying, of course, that they are all backing him with personal news, of course, that he's going through, his parents in Colombia going through some terrible, tragic circumstances. But of course, great result overall. But Gio, what were your thoughts on this game?
I'm gonna go out there and say it. It might be a bold statement, but Liverpool's front three. You can slot Jota in there. You can slot Jota out of there. With Diaz, I think they have arguably one of the best front threes in the Prem, if not the best. I just think the fluidity is there. Again, I have reiterated this time and time again. Darwin Nunez has gained confidence, and Darwin Nunez is looking good. Yes, Salah didn't have a great season last year, but obviously he is sort of proving his worth, and we are saying this, after a match against, a considerably weaker side. But no, it's just the fluidity of it all. And then now they have, players that are very willing to send the ball up and find them as much as possible, just to have that service and to give them those chances. I think is very important. Szoboszlai, obviously, we thought it would take a while for him to adjust, but I think he's adjusting quite well. I think his play style is benefiting Liverpool very well, as well. Getting into the box, making cuts into the box for shots, and then obviously heads always up, looking for that long pass to the front three, servicing the front three, and that's all you can really ask for. I think undoubtedly he's been Liverpool's MVP of the season. Yes, the goal scorers do take a lot of the fame and the limelight, but I think without him, none of the success is quite as possible with any other midfielder that you may want to slot in from their bench.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. Szoboszlai being the big summer signing for Liverpool, spending over 75 million on him, and of course there were questions about him. How is he gonna single-handedly solve the midfield problem at Liverpool? Hasn't done so, I think, so far, but definitely one of the best players for Liverpool so far this season. And hopefully for his sake and Liverpool's sake, they can build upon that and maybe shift their focus on filling out other positions elsewhere on the pitch. But what about you, Mac? What were your thoughts on this result by Liverpool? Now, of course, cementing themselves still in the top four this season, whereas last year, of course, they never really were part of that top four conversation throughout the whole season.
I think right now, this was the most comfortable 3-0 win of the weekend, which is saying a lot because, again, Man City did beat Man U 3-0. So I think it was a great result, kind of what needed us, did the business, did the job. Didn't seem like too much of a threat whatsoever from Nottingham Forest. It was as played out and expected as you can get. I do agree with Gio in terms of their front three. They probably have the most flexible front three because you could argue 5 different players, including Cody Gakpo, and you could fit in there where you really don't know, depending on the matchup, depending on the play style, how Klopp wants to try to get at a opponent's defense, who he's going to put out there, other than Salah is, of course, the mainstay. And it's nice to see an evolution of him. He's been kind of criticized for being a quote-unquote selfish player, especially if you ask certain of his former teammates, a la Sadio Mane, give him time down, give him some truth serum. What does he think? Probably he'll say he's a little selfish. I think that we're seeing a different side. And one of the key stats you take away is where normally Salah has to have such a high amount of expected goals to get a certain level of goals versus now they're very much in line where he doesn't need as many opportunities to kind of get the goals that he's accumulated, and he's willing to share the burden with a lot more of his teammates. So that's nice to see. I think, though, have we learned anything new from Liverpool from this result? Not necessarily. I think, though, the questions that we have still going in are the same. In the midfield, how can they hold up? And between Andy Robertson and Tsimikas, if Trent is going to be in that midfield position, are we going to get more of defensive solidity in that position? I think, and kind of I was thinking about over the weekend, the ideal fit actually for what Liverpool should have on the left-hand side if Trent is going to be maintaining that position. Imagine if Nathan Ake was playing that left back role, similar to what he does for Man City for that Liverpool team, where you just have that solidity there. Trent has a little bit more free roam and more of a center half feel. I think something like that could be interesting for Liverpool to, if they're going to kind of buy in as this long-term plan. And it seems like they're buying into Trent, kind of making him a captain, making him a leader for that long term. How can we be able to make sure that he's more successful? Maybe having a different wide back on the other side of the pitch may make a lot of sense for their long-term plans, because I don't feel like either Tsimikas or Robertson offer that type of profile of a player. So overall, again, nothing learned. Great result. It was needed. And now they're going up to play, I think it's Luton in their next weekend match going in for them. So that should be another 3 points nailed on the board. Liverpool look comfortable, look happy. And the longer that they're in this race, the more and more people are going to believe, and they themselves are going to believe, that they're a threat for the title. And I think that that's what the end situation, I feel like, looks like, where 3/4 in the way of the season, I think it'll be between them, Arsenal, and Man City chasing for that title. And depending on who plays out, no disrespect, of course, to Spurs or Aston Villa, but I think those 3 teams, in all likelihood, will be the ones chasing it down. And picking up these wins now are absolutely vital to give yourself a cushion when they play the big boys, and they eventually will.
Yeah, just on that note regarding Tsimikas and Robertson, I'm actually interested to see as well what's going to happen with the left-sided midfielder. Of course, Gravenberch played this game, whereas I think if Curtis Jones was suspended, he may have started this game. And I know he's had a lot of fans being on his side with his performances going forward. But can he be the problem? Can he be the solution to the problem on the left-hand side to provide coverage in the case that one of the left backs does go on their on their eventual runs every game, or is Klopp going to look at another option of maybe another midfielder that's more defensive minded to cover that sort of left-sided left back spot, if you can sort of make the case, sort of like essentially another holding midfielder next to McAllister, but that of course makes it very crowded there. So a lot of questions still, I think, like Max said, to answer from this Liverpool side. But of course, winning is a great habit to continue to build upon. And of course, the next game is Farewell, so we'll see how the squad rotates and what's next for them. But let's move on, I guess, to, like Max sort of alluded to, the fifth place team currently in the Premier League, Aston Villa, getting another win against Luton Town. Not the toughest match in the Premier League, I would say, but of course, like I just mentioned, winning is a great habit to get into, and they did the job here. So, Mac, what were your thoughts on this fixture?
I think, again, similarly, it's a lovely result, expected considering how we feel like Aston Villa should be going forward. I know Gio may not like this, but that John McGinn finish, to be able to take it off in the 17th minute, was actually cool and clean. I was able to just cut, right foot, weak foot, go across the keeper. I know you may not like it, Gio, but that's why he's on the team. Overall, gotta give big shout out to any Scotsman out there, so respect there. But I think though, what was interesting for the individual game when I was looking at kind of how it shaped out was the role of Musa Diaby, coming in to Aston Villa. Kind of what he does to this team is allowing a different type of threat where they can structurally play either a 4-2-3-1. He can play out on the wing, or Leon Bailey can do that, or even in a 4-4-2, he can play alongside Ollie Watkins and kind of be that secondary striker who can provide support in a different means. Also has great pace to be able to get in behind. So great to see him to get on the score sheet again. I think though this team that you're seeing of how Aston Villa is shaped out is going to be a tough opposition for any of these bottom feeding teams. I think that kind of the Lutons, the Sheffield Uniteds, I think that now we've gotten to the position with Aston Villa where any team down below in the bottom half is, you got to look at this Villa team as you're playing against one of the big boys, and it's just how you're going to play. It may have not happened yet, where I feel like Luton were probably a little bit too adventurous and too outgoing in this game, where I feel like against this Villa team, because they play such a high line and it's difficult to get out, you should have to adjust your system into more transitional team focus of how you be able to get on in the break, especially I would say out wide, because both Genie and Cash are so offensively focused threats, where maybe a pacey winger on either side and a counter-press team, counter-attacking team, you might be in a situation where you can get some joy in that avenue. We haven't seen that much, I would say, against this Aston Villa team, or when they have played certain teams that can do that. Similar to Brighton, they've kind of been able to block them out by having such an aggressive press and denying the space. But if a team can figure out that, you might be able to get the joy. Right now, it's been very difficult for a lot of these teams, like I said, especially at the bottom half of the table against this Villa lineup. But not yet. And it's great to see, at least, again, I know Gio is always going to go back to this, so I'll steal your thunder now, Gio. This where, again, it was our dark horse team. Lovely to see. They seem like this year's Newcastle in a lot of ways, and lovely to see them to continue to play well and pick up another 3 points.
Of course, one of the players that we were highlighting before, Ollie Watkins. I mentioned this to Gio. Of course, I was watching the highlights for this game, and 3 minutes in, balls played onto Ollie Watkins, who flicks it onto, I think it was Zaniolo, who tried to hit it top corner. Just having that type of confidence, if you're Luton Town, you're like, okay, this is what we're up to. Not going to be the greatest match for us. Of course, the second goal highlighted as well, Gio, the way they were able to build that up, even if it wasn't Leon Bailey who gets on the end of the cross. Yeah. Musa Diaby, one of the other potent strikers that Aston Villa has, is at the right spot at the right time. And then the last goal, Ollie Watkins, should have been his goal, but because he's there, he forces the Luton Town defense to a non-goal. And so, yeah, it's just a very strong offensive performance again from Aston Villa. And so I guess the question that you put out for us, Gio, that I guess I'll have you answer for us is, what makes this team so dangerous? It looks like it's been a complete change from what you would say just a year ago from this Aston Villa team. What are your thoughts on that?
I think what it is I think they really took their time in their window to pick and choose who they wanted. I think they brought very complimentary players for Ollie Watkins. They were really reliant on Ollie Watkins, reliant on their pace. But they brought very clinical players in. And the thing is, you don't always need a superstar. You need players that are going to be, that complement each other. Not necessarily a superstar is going to change the club. So I think their buying process has changed a lot of their team. Again, you've brought in you've brought in players that obviously stretch the pitch and alleviate pressure that say, typically, and don't get me wrong, I love John McGinn. I don't know why Mac was hinting at it. I don't love John McGinn. I love when the underdogs do well. So, to alleviate pressure from a John McGinn who isn't as pacey as some of these guys in the midfield, for him to have that space and for him to use his body and his strength, which are his, stronger characteristics, and have the pacier players around him, like from the second goal, where he's able to lay off balls for them and kind of just do hold up plays and things of that nature. I think they've done very well to just build a team as opposed to bring in stars to try to turn the club 180, which again doesn't always work. As you can see, Manchester United, it doesn't always work. It's clearly not working. So yeah, no, I think props to them. And lastly, they brought in a coach that obviously sees the vision and is able to implement the right players in the right areas to play this well.
Yeah, and so that, I guess. Oh, sorry, Mac. Yeah, one more thing.
No, I just wanted to jump in on terms of what makes them different. And I think coaching is definitely kind of the biggest factor and is going to lead to a lot of the success. This is not, for me, dissimilar to, I know it might be overstating the impact as of right now, but the play style is very similar to when kind of Klopp first came into Liverpool, where from them, they're not in terms of a team where I would say they're necessarily high pressing, all out, guns blazing with like a Gayam press, something similar to that. But their tweak of style change of playing such a high line, winning the ball back, not necessarily in their final third, but in the middle third, and having all attacking players that are very good in transitional moments. If it be Ollie Watkins, Diaby, or Leon Bailey, I think all are best in space with a ball in behind, willing to be able to take players one-on-one. I think all three of them, the key attacking players, are the best at doing that. And when you give them opportunities to do that consistently, they're going to create abundance of goals. So having the strong base, having it high enough on the pitch, being able to win the ball back and kind of move forward from there, I think has been the major difference. And that comes down to Unai Emery kind of understanding the kind of the tools in his tool belt, who he has available to him. And then against even teams like this, where, okay, if we're going to have more time on the ball, having the correct patterns of play that still get them into those transitional moments, that still get them in the opportunities where we can take players one-on-one, I think has been key. So coaching for sure, and understanding the individual players of what their best skills are, and having a collection of, again, Moussa Diaby wasn't part of this team when he first joined in. Even Digne wasn't part of this team when Unai Emery first came in, if I remember correctly. So it was more been slow additions to what he already had as a foundation, and it's been a natural fit. So it's great to see them progressing to as good of a club as they've become.
Okay, so let's just to finish off the podcast for today, let's fast forward and predict what their ceiling is. Jerry put it here. Of course, that's one of the questions that we'll try to answer now. And of course, looking back at the record, lost to Newcastle on the opening day, and of course to Liverpool not too long after that. But apart from that, has been great for them in terms of the Premier League. Haven't really come across too many of the big boys. Of course, they beat Chelsea, but nowadays you can choose to have them as one of the big boys in the Premier League. But realistically then, Gio, what is the expected, I guess, finish for them in the Premier League? Should they be aiming at one of those top four positions? And also, they are in the Europa Conference League. They are second in their group right now. Should they look to sort of make a deep run in that, or do you think they focus on the Premier League and finish as high as possible?
No, I think absolutely they should see it as opportunities, an abundance of opportunities. I don't think they should relax in any competitions. Rather, I think they can just see how far it takes them. Don't set yourself any boundaries. See how far you can go. If you're out of one competition, you can focus on another. And I think they should take that Conference League experience, playing in Europe, playing against different teams, seeing different styles of play, I think is important for their development as a team. So I think see how far it takes you. Maybe you don't have to qualify for Europa League because you won the Conference League, or maybe you play so well that at the end of the season, even though you're out of the Conference League, you've already qualified for Europa League. Or best case scenario, they somehow scrape enough points together to finish in the top four, Cinderella story, and make it to the Champions League. There's a lot of things in their favor right now, and I think any European position that's not Conference League is a step up, of course. But even to make a deep push in that just shows, the steps forward they have made as a club.
Okay, well, lastly, Mac, on to same question to you. What do you think is the ceiling for this Aston Villa team this year?
It's rough to say right now, but I think the ceiling is exactly where they are. I don't think they're going to finish in the top four. I think that's a little bit too unrealistic. Again, like I said earlier, I think we're going to nail in Chelsea. Sorry, Oh no, definitely not Chelsea. We're not nailing Chelsea out of this competition, any competition really. But no, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, you can nail it into the top three. I think the argument being is that do you still feel like Spurs long term are going to have a little bit more in the tank than this Aston Villa team? I would say yes. Aston Villa have to play in a European competition, whereas Tottenham do not. So probably you're going to have a little bit more favor in terms of injury luck in all likelihood because you're playing fewer games. So I lean Spurs. So I think fifth is probably the top of what Aston Villa can kind of deem as kind of their peak as in terms of their potential, which would be a huge success for them. There's been a long time since they've been as close to the top of the table as they are right now. I think though the question for me is like, even though they might be fifth, but what's the gap between them being fifth and what the top three, who I think will be the top three, are? If it's closer, that becomes much more interesting. Whereas maybe over the course of the season, as they play some of the bigger boys, I think 3 of their 4 games towards the end of November to December, they have to play Spurs, Arsenal, and Man City. I think we'll know then how big of a team they are. If they come out, let's say, with a win, a draw, and a loss from those 3 results, then we know that they kind of play on par and in all likelihood still be competitive to the end of the season. But if they lose all 3 of those games, then you'll see them fall down back to closer to the kind of the rest of the pack. So I think we'll know a lot more then. But as of right now, they are at their ceiling. I don't think they'll go any higher, but it's still phenomenal.
Yeah, and of course, even though they did concede an own goal to Luton Town, courtesy of Emi Martinez, he is the award winner for the Yashin Trophy, which is the world's best goalkeeper award. So if you have that on your team, of course, you're going to like your chances. But we're going to finish off our podcast here today, guys. If you guys like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. That's at @houseof_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, get in touch with us via email as well, houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be later this week when we review some of the cup matches taking place midweek and also preview match day 11 of the Premier League. But until then, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
I can't say you scored a couple nice goals. That's fine.
The new number 14, of course. Thank you, Gio, for joining us.
Menu, please do better.
See you guys soon.